Welcome to the T.A.C. show, episode 5 with our host today, Crystal Howser. So, Crystal, how long has your family been here in Lansing for?
I have actually lived here my entire life. My parents moved here, I believe it was 1976.
So, they come from like another town in New York before that? They come from like a different state entirely.
They grew up in Dryden, so pretty close by.
So, you're all about suicide prevention. How long
Correct.
how long have you been part of that for?
I lost my dad to suicide in 1998. However, I didn't get involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention until 2012 is when I learned about the organization.
What's the biggest fundraiser you guys have had so far?
So our big fundraiser every year is our Out of the Darkness community walks, which I know you and your mom have attended many times and walk with our team Hope, which is awesome. We love people participating and supporting the suicide prevention efforts.
Yeah. So, like, was there like any really like what's the biggest people you've had for the walks and stuff? Like, what year
So
was that?
I think for our local, so the Greater Ithaca Walk is the one that we do here local in Tompkins County. I think the greatest number since 2012, I can look it up. I want to say it was close to 1,000 people.
Lansing has 10,000 people, so that means that one in every 10 person, like in that town, could have been there.
Correct. And because it's all of Tompkins County, people come from other parts of the county also, so other towns besides Lansing. And some people even come from Auburn, Cortland, so some of the other, surrounding counties also and towns.
Like, these days, ever since like your father passed away, do you feel that now you know about warning signs about if somebody's suicidal or struggling? Like, do you feel that you're more educated now?
Yes, I feel a lot more educated since being involved with AFSP and learning, the signs and things to look for. If you're concerned about someone and then what do you do about it is important, of course, too. So education is very important, as you know, obviously, and the more you learn, the more you can watch out for and you can help people.
Yeah. Like, was there any warning signs that your dad had that you didn't realize back then, but now you realize?
So I was 21 when my dad died, so I was fairly young, and I didn't really know anything about mental health. So for me, being like, I guess, sort of still a kid, a younger person, nothing that I think of, but possibly, maybe my mom or, some of the older people that knew my dad, maybe. But sometimes there isn't any signs at all. Sometimes people are super happy on the outside and they just don't talk about how they're feeling on the inside. But they could be sad and just not expressing it.
Yeah. What do you think of like media portrayals of mental illness? Are there any you heavily dislike or heavily think is incredibly accurate?
Um, I think the stigma behind mental health, however, I think we are coming a long way in the last even couple of years. Has always been, there's been a strong stigma towards people that have mental health conditions. And instead of being supportive and, trying to help people, sometimes the media comes across a little harsh, or, they say inappropriate things, use, more of a negative language that's, not really helpful. It's not helpful to help those people. It's not helpful to portray that out into, TV and movies and the news. So, however, I do think that the media is starting to learn that, by using different language. And, for a good example would be, a lot of times people say committed by suicide or committed suicide. Where we really kind of changed the wording of that a little bit. So, and so we explain to people why too. So if someone dies by suicide, we say that's how they died. Not, because a lot of times the word committed means that you're like committing a crime, it makes it sound like it's something like almost bad. Do you know what I mean? And someone dying by, if someone dies from cancer, you say they died by cancer. So that's an easy example to be able to compare the two things. So we try to say die by suicide because that's what happened to them. It was a mental illness usually is the cause.
Yeah, I've heard that a common mental health stereotype is with films is that basically people with mental illness are frowned upon unless they can channel that mental illness into something artistic or something creative, sort of like Vincent van Gogh or something like that. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think I mean, I don't agree that it should be like that, but I believe it has been. I think they used to say, negative things like people were crazy, or, just, which is not true. That's not, it's an illness. It's just like any other illness. It's just a different one. And I mean, they used to put people into like mental hospitals and something like that, where it wasn't a place where they were trying to help them. Let's, put it that way. Where, if you do have a mental health illness and you need to go to the hospital, then that's what you should do. Like that's, for your own safety. But yeah, a long time ago, they used to not handle it the same way. And they used to not be so positive about things. They would really turn a negative turn on it.
Like, when I was in class, we didn't touch about this type of stuff till about 1-2 years ago. And even then, it wasn't really a lot of modern stuff. It was like those type of VHS, PSA films from 20-30 years ago. And I just find that too bad that they don't address these type of controversies, or they don't give us modern looks. I just
Right.
find that disappointing.
I agree with you 100%. I remember learning a little bit about mental health in would have been 7th grade health, and then whenever you took health in high school, depending on what year it was, is when you take it. But and that's really it. And I hope that nowadays, again, that it's I think people are a little more impacted, and I think people are really starting to talk about mental health illnesses. And it's always been here. It's not new. It's just people didn't talk about it. It was like brushed under the rug. And I think the more it affects people, the more people talk about it, and that's very important. And there's a lot of programs that I know, even AFSP, so who I do my volunteer work for. We offer programs like Talk Saves Lives, which we have went in Lansing School and surrounding schools pre-pandemic, of course, when everyone was in school. And we would go in the health classes and show some of our like films, our educational films. So there's More Than Sad, Teen Depression, that touches on 4 teens that have different mental health illnesses and how things are kind of handled. And it shows how they the negative piece that it's handled, but then how it gets turned around and how, how could you have handled it differently and made more of a positive impact. So, but I agree with you. I think mental health and suicide prevention should be a larger amount of information provided, especially to young people. Young people are, very smart, and they see and hear a lot of things like from their friends and stuff like that too. So they really could help each other a lot.
Yeah. Do you think films such as Silver Linings Playbook is like a good example of mental illness and the ability to overcome it?
Yes, I've actually seen that movie, and I thought it was a very good movie, actually. Um, I also think that, again, in the last probably, couple years, I think films and even TV shows and stuff are adding more, suicide prevention stuff, mental health and stuff in, combining them in their shows and stuff. And every time I see it, I get so excited that they're talking about it, because really talking about it is how you educate others. And it is real, like it's real life. Mental health is just as important as your physical health. And you go to the doctors every year to get a checkup. Well, if you have a mental illness, then you should be going to maybe a different doctor and getting a different type of checkup. Or if you need medicine, nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah. When do you think the stigma against mental health began to die down and stuff? Like people
I
beginning
just
to become more accepting.
Yeah, I just have noticed a lot more recently. I would say in the last 2 or 3 years that it's becoming more prone. Like again, in the media, they're covering things instead of being like, oh no, we're just not going to talk about this. They're really reaching out and interviewing people like myself or other people in my organization that really have great information to be able to share. And so like they're really sharing stuff, even if it's just about our walk, so it connects people where they can come and join us and learn more about like what our group can offer, or even the other groups in the different counties that we have other groups come and like table at our walks and stuff like that. So what information that they can help provide also.
Yeah. You feel that people are also more open these days too about it?
Yeah, and I think people are more affected by it. So I think that when you're affected personally by it, you almost have, I guess speak for myself, I have like a passion to make a difference. So because it affected my life, and I've had, my children have lost friends to suicide. I lost a high school classmate to suicide. So we've lost other people also, but it's so important for us to like reach out to others. And so it really is like part of my passion to try to help others. And hopefully we can prevent suicide. Suicide is preventable. We just have to work really hard and keep reaching out to people and educating people, and we can do it. But it gives us the passion and drive to do those things when it personally affects you.
So you also do the community dinners, right?
I have attended some of them.
So like they've been around for a few years, right? Have you ever
Yeah.
held any?
I have not. I have not.
So what do you think of like the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why? I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and I know a lot of people, even the people who like defend the first season, claim that the rest of the seasons literally just jump the shark and get sort of ridiculous.
So, when the first season came out, there was a lot of controversy, and I know they took out a couple scenes that they probably shouldn't have shared. Um, or they should have added, some, I guess, warning, signs or signals that like maybe kids shouldn't watch it alone. Maybe they should have an adult with them or someone, a safe person that they could talk about like what's happening in the film. That was someone's, I mean, these things do happen in real life, but you also don't have to broadcast it in such a way that it could impact others negatively. So I think it's very important to talk about. It's a very important message to get to people. I have not watched all of season 2, so I guess I can't really comment on that as far as that goes. But I think it opened up a lot of good dialogue for people. And again, I think the people that produced the show, the idea was to bring light to mental health and the importance and stuff. So they did take a couple scenes out of season 1 that they probably shouldn't have shared.
Did you know about the book before it came out? Like, I heard that was quite controversial too.
Yeah, so I've never read the book, but I know a lot of people that have, and that has been part of the conversation. And I think people have kind of a similar response because it's pretty heavy. It's heavy stuff, but it is reality for a lot of people too. So sometimes you have to talk about important stuff that you know it's not always easy to talk about, from bullying to obviously suicide. Um, you know, just because it's not easy to talk about doesn't mean it's not important to talk about.
Do you think we as a high school, like, do you think I should get a mental health day off, or like the school should have like a set amount of like 5 to 4 mental health days a year?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think your sick days, as they would call them, whether it be at your job or your school or however, whatever you do based on your age or anything. I think there's nothing wrong with taking a mental health day. First of all, I think they're important. I think sometimes people get very stressed, and if they just took a day off, it could really almost refuel them and make them feel so much better. And that's why they call them mental health days, is because sometimes you just need to like take a break from the busyness of life. Life's busy.
But do you
What?
think mental health days should share the same days as physical sick days, or should they have their individual own thing? Should they be the
Um,
same thing categorized?
I would say I would go either way with that. I would say they're equally as important, but they could be consolidated together because I think mental health and physical health are just as important as each other. So I think your days should be just as important, whether it's a mental health day or a physical health, whether you have the flu or you're just really exhausted, like mentally, and you just need a break. And I think that's becoming more aware to at least employers, and I think schools are aware of it too. And I mean, I think they should be okay, but I'm not an employer or a school, so
Oh yeah, because I don't know if like I don't think the middle school implements it, but I don't know any about the high school if they do anything like that.
yeah, I think as long as you have permission to be home from school for whatever the reason is from like your parents, I think the school would be okay with it. As long as you're not like skipping school or doing something, that you shouldn't be doing type thing.
Have you like talked to any kids like about how their mental health is affected during COVID? Like, have you talked to students about that?
So through AFSP, we have done a lot of online programs and stuff still, kind of via Zoom, like you and I are meeting right now, because we can't be together with people. We're still offering all of our programs. So there's More Than Sad Teen Depression. It's Real, which is a college-based one, and Talk Saves Lives is really for anyone. We try to include anyone 16 and under. We prefer an adult or parents or something to be involved, to make sure that they're understanding everything that's being presented. So I have people reach out to me all the time. Actually, they just know the volunteer work that I do, and they know that I'm a safe person, that they can reach out to me. And I'm not a therapist. I have a whole other day job. But if I don't have an answer for whatever their question is, or I can't personally maybe provide them with the help they need, I can help find the help that they need, or find a safe person that can help them, whether it be a counselor, a therapist, or just another adult. Sometimes people just need someone to talk to. And so listening is really so important.
Yeah. Have you ever worked directly with a school on anything or any projects?
So we've worked with a lot of the schools with, again, coming in to the health classes and doing the More Than Sad Teen Depression. We have come into Lansing School and done presentations on D-Day, which I think is done every other year. We've done that a couple times. Trying to think. We also go into places and do almost like a health fair, I guess, like tabling events. Sometimes they're at schools, sometimes they're at like malls or other type of places where, another person that I volunteer with and I would be at a table with a lot of information, and we can share that information, whether it be brochures or pamphlets, the lifeline, the suicide prevention lifeline number. We have special cards, we give out to people so they have it handy with them to be able to, use for themselves, share with a friend. We do a lot of things like that. Of course, COVID has made it a little tougher because things aren't open and stuff, but we're trying to do everything as best we can, remotely, and still being able to reach out to people. And the one thing we have learned actually during COVID is we can reach some people that maybe we wouldn't have reached otherwise, because they are home or they can do it remotely, but maybe they don't drive. So maybe they couldn't have come to one of our events or something. So that's important that we reach those people too.
I just read Shakespeare's classic play, Romeo and Juliet. Anybody who's read it, anybody who's even read the prologue, most likely knows about the tragic ending. Do you feel that Romeo and Juliet's ending, I know it was written a few hundred years ago, but do you feel that it sort of glorifies suicide and death? Like the death of two star-crossed lovers?
Yeah, I don't think that's what that was meant for. I mean, I think it was portraying their love for each other and that they would even die for each other. I think that's kind of what was meant. That's what Shakespeare meant with that type of novel. I don't think he meant it in the capacity of like suicide.
Yeah, but do you think today they should change it or adapt it? Since I've seen many adaptations, and like the death scene is one of the few things that actually stays the same throughout. Like, do you think they should adapt it for the times, or just keep it like the original play, keep the original spirit?
Yeah, I think because Shakespeare's so well known and been around for so long, and I think it was really portrayed as a love story. I think they probably won't change it.
Oh, well, if they made a musical about lions singing in Africa against evil lions with talking warthogs and meerkats based off Hamlet. I bet you they could do something with Romeo and Juliet.
You are right. They probably could. They probably could. I'm just not sure they would, but they could do something different, I'm sure.
Yeah. So what is your day job? Like, what do you do mainly for work?
Okay, so I am actually a manager and a bookkeeper, and so I like write checks and send out invoices and stuff like that. It's basically what a bookkeeper does, and keep financials and stuff. So I work for an accounting financial planning firm. That's what I do for my regular job.
Yeah, like anybody get you inspired to get in that job? Like, what made you want to go out there and being an accountant?
So my mom actually worked in accounting, and she's always been very inspirational to me. And she's a hard worker, and so am I. And I wasn't so sure. I really loved accounting and business classes. As I was growing up, I attended Lansing School, and I took all of those classes, and I really did well in them, and I really enjoyed it. It came easy to me. And so then when I graduated and went to college, I thought, maybe I'll try something different. And I didn't really care for that. So I ended up going back into accounting. So that's kind of how I ended up back here. And I really love what I do for my job. I do work some with taxes and stuff. But I work for a great firm. They're great people. So I really enjoy what I do for a living and who I work for. So that's a win-win in my book, because most
Do you
people
feel
don't.
that they should learn personal finance in high school? That like they should teach personal finance more compared to calculus and learning how much sand there is in a desert?
Yes. I personally feel that way. I think kids should learn like how to keep a checkbook, how to, again, maybe learn how to do their own taxes. Some easy, simple things. You can obviously always go to a tax professional, and sometimes things get complicated. That's why they have those professionals. But I'm trying to think of what else, like maybe car insurance. So some different insurance stuff, life insurance, like learning a little bit about that type of stuff. Even like doing stuff at like the DMV. There's a lot of stuff that people have no idea how complicated it is until they get in the real world. And then they're like, what's all this paperwork? What are all these things?
Yeah.
I've always been more of a finance, as far as a number person. Like I believe math is important, don't get me wrong. But there are some things like some of the algebra, unless you're in a specific field that uses that, or like you said, calculus, some of those more complicated things, they're not bad. And some people are really good at it, but some people can't even balance a checkbook either. And I think that's also really important skills to have and that they should teach in high school.
Yeah, like do you know a lot of people from your high school class who struggled for a while with finances or handling your own taxes or stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know if I know anyone personally. And I feel like we learned some, but only if you took those specific classes. So I think they should have a general class that has a lot of the basics, that everyone, almost like it should be a requirement, like you're required to take a health class. It should be maybe a required class that everyone takes. Like
Do you
again, to
feel that
learn some of the basic stuff. A lot of it is because technology is changing also. So people don't keep checkbooks. They're like, oh, I can just log online and see how much is in my bank account. I could never do that. I would lose sleep.
do you feel that these days student loans have gotten too overboard? Like, people owning tens of thousands of dollars, like not being able to pay it off till they're in their mid-30s, trying to get a mortgage with several kids.
Yeah, I feel like education should be more economical for people to afford. And like you said, what if someone has, 5 children or something, and then you have to pay for all of that education too, and or even going back to finish your degree as an adult. So say you start your degree and you stop for whatever reason, you go back. You have a lot of other responsibilities, rent or house payments and other bills and stuff. And now all of a sudden you're like, I want to go and better myself and get learn more and get a better education. And now you get dropped with this big bill there too, which it's important, but I don't know. I would like to say that it could be more economical. I think sometimes some schools just skyrocket their prices because it's a new year or because they can. So
Yeah, because isn't the entire purpose of a loan they check how much money you have and then they see what would be a sizable loan for you? Because I don't think
right,
they really do that since like college kids have like they have income, most of them have income that's not really designed to handle the jobs that are required to take these things on. Like I bet you there's still a good portion of them that have like minimum wage part-time jobs. That can be hard to get by.
right, definitely. And especially if they're paying for their own stuff. Some people don't have families to help support them either.
Yeah.
Or financially support them. And they have to pay for like rent and electricity and food and those other bills too. Um, yeah, and a lot of times when you're going to college, you can't work full time because you're spending a lot of hours doing your education and your schooling, and then of course you have homework. So you're right. Some people are working part-time jobs or jobs, like you said, making minimum wage where you're not making a large amount of money, and then you still have to pay these daunting large student loans. That can be really tough for people.
No, I know the military pays for the college. Some people said that like the military army would decrease heavily if they made community colleges free, just you had to pay more taxes. You think that's true?
I mean, I think some people would still go into the military, of course. Some people are very dedicated to, the country that we live in and defending it. But I do believe some people probably go into the service because they do get their college paid for. College is very expensive.
Or
But I think that would all just depend on the person. I guess it would be hard to judge that.
do you think the US would still remain a serious world power even if they did do that and they did grant free college? Do you think throughout the world they'd still be seen as like a serious force?
Yeah, I think so.
Since I heard a lot of people online saying that the whole reason they don't have free college is because like they want more people to enroll in the military.
Oh, really? I don't think I've ever heard that, but it could be true.
Yeah, because one of my siblings, half siblings, like one of the reasons she got like her military career was to originally help do her college stuff.
Right. Yeah, sometimes people that's the game changer. Like that's why they ultimately will go into the military. But
Yeah. So your dad was a police officer, right?
so my dad actually he worked for UPS, so he was a UPS
Oh,
driver for 30 years. And he was a volunteer firefighter
oh,
for like
okay.
forever, for as long as I can remember.
Uh, so yeah, there's only one volunteer firefighter team, right? There's like no regular one. There's only a volunteer one.
Yeah. Well, some people, I guess it depends, and I know this has changed a lot over the years too. Some people get paid to be firefighters too, like that's their actual job. And then, but a lot of it is really based on volunteer. Like without volunteers for firefighting and you know EMS and medical personnel and stuff, sometimes we would be in big trouble without the volunteers, that's for sure, especially now. I think that's changed a lot over the years too.
Yeah.
But
So
sometimes people do get paid to do it like as their actual job.
like, how much training does a volunteer have compared to a regular firefighter? Like, is there any major difference in training?
I personally don't know. I would think the training itself I would think, be very similar. People still need to know the information and how to fight fires and how to save lives and stuff. I would think that the people that are paid to do it may have a little more responsibility. And I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that, but because they just spend more time doing it. But I would think everyone would have to have, a lot of training to be able to, again, know what is right and wrong as far as like putting out fires and just saving lives.
One of my teachers is a volunteer firefighter. Right after Thanksgiving, she was like, "Please don't do anything." Like right before Thanksgiving, she was like, "Please don't do anything crazy."
Right. She probably didn't want to have to come to anybody's house to put out a turkey fire or something, like.
Yeah. Because turkey requires a lot of cooking, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure does. You gotta always be careful.
I've never cooked one, but it seems really complicated.
I know. I thought the same thing. I've always appreciated my mom's always cooked the turkey for us.
So anyway, thanks for talking. It was really fun talking to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you too. I'm happy to help.
Well, anyway, stay tuned in for the next episode of the T.A.C. show. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Anytime.